Hello everyone, I'm back again with another unconventional video because today we don't have a tutorial. It's a video where I want to do mainly two things. So the first is that I want to announce the semi-open beta of my custom tone mapper, which is what you see here. Is the project sample I will give you if you end up downloading it. And the second thing is to launch a sort of like a tone mapping jam where if you will end up getting my tone mapper, I'll give you a series of, let's say, challenges to like inspire you to test it out in different ways and try to push the boundaries so that hopefully I get loads of useful feedbacks to improve even more on this. So, what I'm gonna do for the rest of the video is to try to sell you the point of view of my tone mapper to hopefully make you curious about it and willing to test it out. Um, and then I will also then I will do a sort of a like walkthrough of the parameters that you can use to tune it up. And then I will go through the challenges, let's say, for the jam, if you want to participate. Um, I will open a dedicated section for it in my Discord server, so be sure to join so you will be able to test your thoughts, to post your tests, thoughts and work in progresses. Um, so, what's the point of my tone mapper? I think it's a widely shared sentiment that a real default tone mapper is not that great, to put it in a balanced way. Um, so I wanted to do one that res- mm, responds to the scene in a way that actually makes sense to me, at least, and that I can easily tune up to achieve the look I want. Because for me, with a real way of handling things is not like straightforward. So let me start by, of course, showing you the difference between a real tone mapper and mine. What we're looking at now is a real, and this is mine. I think we can already spot few key differences. So, why is my tone mapper called Perceptual Tonemapper? It's called Perceptual Tonemapper because I aim to reproduce the way we perceive the light rather than how a camera perceives it. Why is that? That's my personal opinion. When we play a game, we are impersonating a character. So what we're doing is, even if it's third person or whatever, we are looking through the eyes of that character. We're not looking through the camera held by the cameraman that is following that character. And I think that's an important point about immersion. So having a response that it's the same that we would expect if we were really there. Then of course making images cinematic has its own place, and to be honest, by making my perceptual tone mapper, I think I've made it also easier to simulate some analogic or digital media indirectly for certain things, at least. You still can't do like everything, uh, but now it's in a spot where I feel like has enough features and working well enough, these features, that I can give it to our people to try it out. The first thing I think you immediately notice is the difference there is in color response with mine, and I hope at least this is what you would actually expect when you set a mannequin to red or any other color really. Because this looks just weird. And I've used here the extreme colors, like fully saturated edge of the spectrum colors on purpose, because those are the ones that give you most of the problems. If you are working in a range that is, let's say, realistic, colors that we are more likely to find in nature, you hardly get to this level of saturations, but so you see less the issues with a real stone mapper, but they're still there, and mine gives you like the response you would expect more. At least I hope you feel in that way, as me. So why can I get such a dramatic difference in the colors? That's because underneath my tone mapper, I'm not tone mapping the RGB values directly. I am first transforming the RGB color space in a perceptual color space, and then I'm tone mapping in that space, and then I'm reconverting to RGB. What's a perceptual color space? So the perceptual color space is a way of expressing colors and luminance of colors so that it closely matches how the eye is wired to perceive the colors. And that makes it way easier to do non-destructive operations on the colors. Because if I apply a curve on RG and B separately, which is the only way I can do it in RGB space, given the different hue of the color, RG and B will have different ratios, so they will land on a different spot of the curve, each of them. While in a perceptual color space, luminance and the actual color are two separated things, so I can map the luminance with the tone mapping curve without affecting at all the colors. And that's why you see this dramatic difference here. By the way, I have these two tone mappers and I try to closely match the result the best I could. I'm not like the absolute expert in tuning up the real stone mapper, but also while doing all the comparison tests for my tone mapper, I got much better, and this is how far I could go for this situation at least. What else? Oh yeah, so aside from the tone mapping that we're all used to, since I have decided to reproduce human perception of light, I've implemented a key thing that has never been done before, which is I have simulated the adaptation of the human eye to low light conditions. Now the sun is high in the sky, so we don't have it, but I mean, I guess you've been before in a dark room, or even even better, because you will be able to recognize the outcome, camping in a place in the mountains, I don't know, where there is absolutely no light pollution, and maybe you went out from your tent at like a pitch black night, like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and there was the moon, and you realized that you could see like it was midday, but in bluish black and white. That's the feeling I have reproduced here. So if I play with the sun, and I start to make it like a set. Let's give it time to lumen to adjust, and I slowly keep going. You will start to notice that everything feels more natural in the way it responds to the condition of light. And this is what we get with, let's say, clear sky, full moon, and our eyes fully adapted to the low light condition. There is no color grading going on here. It's just the pure simulation of the response of the cells we have in the eye and how they react to very low light conditions. Yeah, and how does this look with a real stone mapper? It looks like this. It's very warm. It's not cool because the temperature, the color temperature of the moon is actually warmer than the one of the sun. We're used to always see it like cool. Oh yeah, the moon is cool, just because we have this adaptation that makes us perceive it as cool. But it's not cooler, it's warmer than the sun. And this gets me to another important point. My perceptual tonemapper, since it's trying to replicate the response of our eyes to real lighting conditions, in a way it demands the use of a physically based light pipeline. So you can't just like the sun must be the intensity of the sun, the moon has to be the intensity of the moon. You have some wiggle room, of course, but if you want the correct responses, you have to use the correct values. Of course, you can disable this thing, and my tone mapper will look with the usual colors. You don't have this low light adaptation. So let's go back in a daytime. And the other key feature is that I wanted the color grading to actually be intuitive, easy to use, and just that, oh, I touch the parameter and I know what I'm changing about the image, and it just works, and I can go straight to the art direction I want to give to the image. Because I don't know if you ever felt the same as me, but this thing, it's awful, to say the least. It's total shit. Like, you never understand what's happening when you change stuff around. The midtones, the highlights, is not always clear where they lie on the image. And it's just very uncomfortable. I understand that they implemented this because it's a sort of like industry standard in color grading for movies and stuff like that. That doesn't change that. It's a terrible UI and terrible user experience. It's like saying, oh yeah, Maya, I have to use Maya because it's the standard. Yeah, it doesn't change the fact that the software is complete crap. It's unusable if you don't know already by memory everything it can do and where to find it. So it's about time that software houses understand that they have to hire some proper UI designers. Yeah, so rants aside, my color grading, you will see in a bit, is actually super straightforward, and I took huge inspiration from like Photoshop and especially Lightroom, because I mean, before becoming a tech artist and everything, I've been a photographer, I studied video making and all these things, so I know very well how these things work. Uh, like, this was the introduction. Hopefully I got you curious enough to give it a try. Uh, I want to put my hands forward before carrying on, because it happened many times in the comments of my videos that people get somehow offended because I'm selling the stuff and not giving it away for free. This project sample is not free, and it's not free for three main reasons. So the first is this is already a shit ton of work, you couldn't imagine it. So I'm not willing to give it away for free. Even though it's poorly performant, it needs a shit ton of changes still. If you open my shader, you will see that it's loaded with like little comments about things that have to change, that to be optimized and made better. But still, like, the result is there. Secondly, I want to put a filter on the amount of people and also the commitment that people have. So like, I don't want to get flooded with thousands of people asking questions and stuff like that, because I'm one person, I have very limited time and energy at the moment. So I want to like restrain that. And third, it has been more than 1 year that I've been trying to make this my full-time job. Like I don't have an employee, I'm not employed anymore since my baby was born, and I'm trying to make this work, and this is how I earn a living. So I hope seems fair to you. At the end of the day, it's not that you got a prescription from your doctor to use my Tonemapper right now, otherwise you die. You can still wait for the final product, because as all of the things I release, it will be sold alongside the free tutorial that, if you want to put in the effort and understand how it works and remake it for yourself, you can do it for free. So I hope peace, like, no sweat about this. So now, for the section 2, let's say, I walk you through like the parameters you find in my Tonemapper and how to use them, so that if you use it, we will be able to reference this section of the video and hopefully get an understanding on how to move things around. So first of all, I have added a few visualizations. The main one is this. This is the tone mapping curve. This is telling you like the lowest EV value that is taken in consideration, below which everything is clamped to black, and this is the highest EV, after which everything is clamped to white. And this is the current exposure compensation that is being applied. This is a section for a part of the color tone mapping, because in my Tonemapper, since, as I said before, I'm using a perceptual color space which separates luminance from color. That means that I have to tone map separately luminance, which I do through this curve, and color, which I do through another curve that is not displayed here, and this part here. And this is a section that refers to the final color grading, so like the post-processing part of the image you obtained. So where you put tints and you color grade in more of a like a classic way. And you can there is also another visualization that is this one, that allows you to see exactly what is considered as highlight in red, midtones in gray, and shadows in blue. So there is absolutely no confusion when you're tuning up like the different areas where you are affecting the image. We'll get back to this later. Now I can walk you through the parameters and the different like sections here. So first of all, which is the one key difference from the Arial Tonemapper, is that I from the start, I want to decide what's the dynamic range I take in consideration for the image. What I mean by that is that the eyes and really like especially cameras have a finite dynamic range. The eye, when you just look at something without like trying to like squint your eyes or dart them around, at once you can perceive something like 15 stops. With all the adjustment the brain does, the adaptations of the cells, and the fact that you can do the saccadic movements of the eye around to reconstruct better the image. The perception of the eye is extended to around 24 EVs, so it's huge. When you use a camera, if it's a high-end digital camera, you likely get up to 16 EVs, but more likely you are in the range of 14 to 12. So you can see how like this logic, even though I made it because it made more sense to me for the perceptual part, because I like to know like where my whites and blacks are, it actually would help you more for the reproduction, like the recreation of an analogic film or whatever. Because if you know the media it has been shot on, you can look around in the internet and know exactly what's the dynamic range of that shot and work from there. So if you increase the dynamic range, of course you get more values, you get less contrast, so you have to adjust the curve. At the moment I have 20 as default and I have tuned the curve and everything else to match, to work with that 20. If you go lower, of course contrast increases, there is quicker like clipping of black and whites, and you have to readjust the curve in a different way to get natural response. And as always there is the exposure compensation, which works exactly how it works in the classic thing. I just put it here. That parameter still works, but since everything is tuned up by here, I didn't want people to jump around back and forth between two different things. You have it here. And you can see that this number is changing. And this number is not matching this exposure compensation because of a feature that I will explain to you, which is the eye adaptation section here, that dynamically changes exposure adaptation depending on the light condition in a linear manner. It's not just a clump of max and min. So once you have this, it's your starting point. You get the tone mapping curve. The tone mapping curve is not dramatically different, like it's still an S curve, but it is very different from the Ariel's one. So let me show you, because it has some key issues that I wanted to fix with my curve. So the problem with this curve, which is still, like even though I'm visualizing my tone mapper, this curve still refers to the parameters in the filming tone mapper. The issue with this curve is that every single parameter offsets completely the curve, so when you're moving around something, it forces you to retune all of the other parameters to have the curve centered around the value you wanted. And not only this, but also like most likely involves the exposure compensation too, so it's very uncomfortable to work with. What I mean by that, so let's say that now let me move. No, let's not do it like this, it's horrible. So let's say I have this curve. And the second thing is that you don't have like a clear understanding of what's the black and what's the absolute white here, because the curve, depending on how you set it, you also change that range. So it's something that I don't like. So let's say that now I am around 0.5, which is here. If I change my slope, I would expect the middle gray to stay at the same point and then the curve to contrast around that spot, because otherwise it means that I'm also like steering up and down the total perceived brightness of my final image. But this is not what happens in this case. You can see that the whole curve moves backwards, so it means that I'm making everything whiter by just increasing the slope instead of just increasing the contrast. And this happens also with when I change all the other things. You can see that the middle portion here is shifting back and forth, which I don't like. The same of course applies to the shoulder. There are these clip values that allows you, okay, so now my white is at 20 EVs, but same, like when I change stuff, this thing moves around too, so it's not that great to work with. It's still like a very much eyeballing on this little graph down here. Yeah, so this is one thing I wanted to change with my curve. So, and that's also why I have like imposed like a finite dynamic range from the start, because once I have this, I know which my values are, and I just play in that range. So you will see that there are a bit more parameters here, but they still like you can still recognize some: toe, slope, shoulder, and I also have the midpoint, and then I have these lift extra parameters. So midpoint is exactly that. Where is my midpoint in the curve? At this point, at this moment I have it to 0.45. If I move it around, I change the image without changing where my total black and whites are. I'm just changing where my mid-gray is inside this range. And my slope, when I change it, changes around the mid-gray point, which is here. So I tune the contrast around the spot I decided that is like the mid-gray. I don't move it when I change the slope. And toe and shoulder work exactly the same. So a tone mapping curve usually is composed of 3 sections, which is the toe, which is this curve that ramps up from the shadows. Then there is a linear section in the middle, and then there is a curve that closes to the highlights, which is the shoulder here. So the toe climbs around the linear section, and the shoulder does the same down here. Plus I've added this lift parameter, for lack of better name, like I will probably change them in the future, which are at which angle toe and shoulder they exit from the clamp points. So in this case the toe is like going straight up like this, and it's still curving. The shoulder is at 1, so you have a like wider range of values that are very, very, very close to white, to pure white. Otherwise, you can make it like that and recover some of the highlights. Yeah, and alongside all these things, as I anticipated, since the perceptual color space separates luminance from color, I have this saturation curve, which is like a very simple exponential curve that allows you to, let's say, increase the saturation of the scene, and you can go wild and do this thing. This is like a very simple tone mapping curve for the colors. Plus, I have this highlight burn threshold. What is this? This is something that, especially in photorealistic scenes, is crazy good. Here, like, this is not the best scene to sell this parameter, but you can still see the effect of it. So if I remove the effect of this, we get this. So the colors remain a lot like more like pure, like this is the perfect color I set in my base color. Um, so if we do this, like it's total red and stuff like that. The thing is that when our eye is hit by direct reflection of the sun, our eye like saturates, and by saturation I don't mean like the color, I mean saturation, like the our cells are not able to respond anymore and not perceive any detail in that area, so we just perceive it as bright white, like blinding bright white. And that's what I've tried to simulate with this parameter. So you have a threshold that says, okay, where's the point where my eye gets saturated? And this is like an overexposed scene, so it makes sense that everything tends to a bit more white. And this is also the parameter that when I have emissive surfaces, and also these are set with a kind of like a physically based value of emissive, help you to have what you would expect from emissive sources, which is they drift towards white, because otherwise they will just be like the old Tonemapper that Arial had before switching to the filmic one, which kept the saturation of the colors like this, which is, I mean, it might be something that you want if you're doing certain stylized thing, but it's not really realistic, so with this you can steer them to white. And even in this case I can brag a bit about the result. I think that's a much more natural response, given how bright they are. Yeah. So this is the first thing you want to nail in terms of settings, and then you can keep carrying on. Yeah, the scotopic vision is the part that takes care for the low light adaptation, and as I showed you, you can deactivate it, and there are a few things that work here. So the eye, when it adapts to like different brightnesses across the same scene, it does it like depending on the overall brightness of the environment. So that's why like if you see like a pitch black room but you are outside, like here for example, if it was midday and I would try to really focus inside here, I will never get this kind of adaptation to see what's inside, because the overall environment is super bright, so that doesn't allow my eye to properly widen up the pupil and the whole low light adaptation to kick in. That's why I have, by the way, scotopic is the term that identifies the night vision that we have. During day it's called photopic, and in the midsection where there is the transition we have the mesopic vision. The scotopic, I added this parameter that allows you to decide if you want the adaptation per pixel or per overall exposure of the scene. And I put it to this value because I think the overall exposure of the scene is more important than the single pixel, but you still want some localized adaptation to happen. And this will be like the difference in this case. And probably it's much better if I enable the lights around here. So these are some lights that I've added as a physically based values references. This is like a candle, this is like a campfire, this is the torch of a mobile phone, this is like a LED torch, or kind of equivalent to the lights of a car, more or less. In the chart they were very close. And you can see that, yeah, here I have less low light adaptation because I'm almost directly hit by this bright light, and as I go further and further, and this dramatically changes the result if I change per pixel or per overall brightness. The Scotopic vision is something new, so it still needs a lot of work, but I think it's like decent enough now. And especially like during the transition, it makes the sunsets and sunrises much better. Yeah, and I also added I hope you can see it, this noise which kind of sells the idea of the lower resolution we have when we are in very dark places, and there's a reason for that. So when we are in very low light environments, like our cones, which are in the fovea, the center, just the center part of the eye, which are also the only thing that perceive the color. So we see the colors only in a very small spot of our eye. The rest is black and white. They're not very sensitive to low light, so they, let's say, deactivate after a while, and we are left with only the rods, which are the rest of the surface of the eye, which are much more sensitive, and they are like 5 to 6 times more sensitive to light. So that's why they are able to make us see with very low light, but they're not sensitive to color, and they are both more sparse, so we have lower resolution, and they are also like more of them are hooked to the same cell to increase sensitivity. So like more receptors go into one single cell, so it means that one single cell, it's like just one pixel in a way. So I'm not actually like lowering the resolution of the image, I'm just adding this sort of noise that moves. I hope you like see it in the same way I kind of see it. This is like a placeholder noise, it's not like the final one I want to use, but it sells the idea. And you can you have some flexibility to tune up the noise to make it bigger, smaller, more apparent or less, or disable it completely, make it like faster in the flickering and stuff like that. Yeah, then, well, pretty basic. Of course, there is also the white balance. This is a very straightforward way of white balancing, like you take the hue angle, so which is the key hue you want to move towards or away from, and you offset your image towards that. So by default I set to the couple like warm and cold, but if you change the angle you can have whatever color you want. And you can also go out of bounds with most of the parameters I have, you can go out of bounds. So play with that. What else? So another thing that I've added is a dynamic exposure compensation. So how does that work? In a real, like normally we have control over the maximum and the minimum exposure. That's not enough because we are clamping, and that's fine, but some conditions of light we permanently see them, even in the range between the min and max, we always see them as overexposed or underexposed. So what I'm doing here, I am remapping my input range, let's say, to my perceptual range. What I mean by that? So this is something I see from the histogram of the scene, like now it's midday and it's very bright and I am around 15 EVs. So my input exposure is, max exposure is 15, and when I am at night I go down to -3, and also I can get lower to -4. So I set -4 as input low threshold. Then I say, okay, I want my 15 to be equal to 12.5, so I get overexposure in this situation, and my -4 to be remapped to 0, so during night I get underexposure. And with this thing, like, it's not a clamp because all the values in between get remapped. It's like a linear interpolation. They get remapped accordingly. And you can see, and then I have this compensation curve adjustment that basically, instead of making it linear, it makes it exponential. So you can basically change where the zero compensation point is hit, sooner or later. So this means that as I go down lower with my sun and I start to change the lighting condition, then the brightness of the image, you can see that my exposure compensation dynamically changes. So now I'm at 1, before we were at 2 something. I go lower and lower and lower, and the exposure changes, and it goes towards 0, and then it starts to underexpose the image, and it makes more perceptual sense, right? And there we go, it's night. Is this an easy way to tune this up? Aside from the extremes, the compensation curve requires some eyeballing because I have to build probably another visualizer to better define where the 0 point is, or at least visualize it so it's easier to understand. But otherwise you can try all the different lighting conditions you have and move around the curve until you get the spot you like. And of course you can disable it. Couldn't you already do this with the exposure compensation curve? Yes. But hand authoring like this curve opens up to like doing weird things where the exposure compensation goes up and down while it should be like a more confined parametric curve, in my opinion. But you can still use this and not use that, and it will work. It's perfectly fine. What else? The next part of the color tone mapping. So I have this selective color grading, which is, I think, one of the greatest features I've added. It's a shit ton of parameters. So if you ever used Lightroom, you know what I'm talking about. So with this, you're able to isolate specific hues and change their behavior. So let's say I don't like my greens here, and this is the corresponding visualizer. So if I don't like my greens and I think they are too bright for some reason, I can just make them darker without affecting the rest of the image. Or I decide, yeah, my greens are too bright, so I want them darker, and I want them more like yellow, and I also want them a lot more saturated, so I can do that. And you can see that the rest hasn't been changed, and that's what happened here in the visualizer. So this allows you to see, okay, where did I modify things and what I've done where. And you can do with anything, like I'm saturating this now, and the violet, I removed the violet because I hate it, and stuff like that. This, like in this case, seems like very isolated on the mannequins, of course, but you will see that this has a huge impact when you use it on an actual environment, and allows you to fine-tune the colors to the perfect spot you want them to be on. I'm saying this because so far I've tested and if you follow the dev diary I'm keeping up on Discord. You see, like I've done a lot of sample shots on Valley of the Ancient, Electric Dreams, the city sample too I've used and stuff like that. So try it out because this is super powerful. And this allows also you to, let's say, limit the color palette if you want. So let's say let's enable all the parameters. I want to restrict the amount of colors there are in my actual scene. And by that I don't mean like saturating them. I mean like literally having less colors, because let's say I'm trying to reproduce some very low quality media, like I don't know, the Polaroid. The Polaroid had horrible colors, which is also what made it very iconic in a sense. Yeah, but it wasn't great. And let's say, okay, I want my image to mainly perceive violets and oranges for some reason. So I can take the violet and the violet, I don't touch it, but the colors around it, I try to steer them towards my key color. So I can go to my magenta and make it more violet. You can see there is a little bit of problem here because I still haven't covered the interval between my key colors perfectly. So, I mean, you likely won't notice it in the final image, but it's something that I'm about to fix after this video goes out and I start to work on the fixes and all the things I have to do. I take my blue and I shift it towards violet too. And I go to my light blue and I do the same. And of course I can also go like out of bounds with this to make it even more extreme. So you can see I'm like expanding the area where everything is perceived as violet. And I do the same thing over here, and I also go out of bounds a bit. So now everything is kind of violetish, and now I go to orange and I do the same thing. And red, I make it more orange, and yellow, I make it more orange. I take the line and I do the same. Yeah, even more extreme like that. And yeah, the green, I don't want to be too extreme with the green, so I steer it towards yellow and it's fine. And the aquamarine, I can choose if I want to go either one side or the other, but I'll go towards, yeah. And you can see now I have a more like different response from like the hypothetical media I would use to capture like an imperfect display of colors, let's say, which is cool, I think. And I can go further and also tune up Luma and Chroma. Disable all parameters. Let's go back to where we were to begin with. And now you've done all your tone mapping. It's time to some post-processing, and I kept it very straightforward and easy. So now this is the visualizer we are looking to, and we are taking care of also the highlights and etc. So first of all, aside from displaying, so you can actually see where the stuff is, like highlights, low tones and mid-tones. I also added control over the mask, so you can contrast them, and also how much of the image, the bright part of the image, is considered highlights or not, and same for the shadows. So you have really like full control over where your color grading will go. And well, let's see it like this. And then I can go on and I have the main tint if you want, so I can tint my image to red in this case. And you can see here it gets displayed like, okay, my gradient, this is the reference gradient, input gradient, and this is like the tinted correspondent. So everything steers to red now, and the great thing about using a perceptual color space is that I can tint stuff without changing at all its brightness, because you can see the blue becomes a dark red while the yellow and greens become very light reds, because I'm just steering the hue without changing, affecting like the chroma, the saturation, and the luminance, which is super powerful. Which is something that you don't get. It's another issue of like not using a perceptual color space. Like you see how the blue get rising up, aside from like having a weird steering towards orange and the wrong colors in some spots. Because different colors have different perceived brightness, and that's why when we usually convert the image to grayscale from color, we have the blues that are darker, the reds are a bit in between, and the brighter is the green, because it's like a simulation of how we perceive the image. Like the blue cones in our eye are uh, the are the most sensitive in low light, but they are the least sensitive to light in high light. So we perceive it as brightness. Red is a bit in between, and the green are the ones that give us basically the overall brightness of the color. They are the most important. So yeah, I can tint my image like this, but I can also tint it just on the highlights. And you can see that it matches perfectly the visualization, right? And I can change my tint, I can make it, I don't know, this acidic yellowish. And I can do same on the shadows, and I can make them, I don't know, this very cold violet. And I can do it on the mid-tones and make it, I don't know, this orange-ish thing. And then I can go back and tone down a bit. And you can see that I have already a highly stylized image in this case. And there is one more step, which is the histogram in and out. So this is the same as using levels in Photoshop. I hope you know what I mean. So you can clamp the values up and down. And by the way, you can see here how I have tinted my stuff, and this changes of course with the threshold. So you see one-to-one what you're doing here. So the levels, so I use them to clamp. So clamp the whites, clamp the blacks. So I can do this and that. And you can see here it also matches what I'm doing here, and the upper portion is what is referring to this part. So you can see that this was my input gradient, and this is what I have now. So here is the clamp, there is a slight line that you can see, and the black is harder to see, but you can see that I have more black now. Yeah, I can do this, and then I can also remap with the out part. I can say, okay, yeah, I want the whites to not actually be whites, but lower. So I can do this. And same for the blacks, I don't want them to be pitch black, I want to be a bit higher. So I can lift them up. And basically you get a very like worn out print that has reacted with the sun and stuff like that, and that has been like ruined, let's say, by time. It's not the happiest choice of colors here, but you get the point. Like it's very easy to achieve a result with this thing here. So that was the complete walkthrough of my Tonemapper. And now I want to talk about the tone mapping challenges. So if you end up like downloading this, and you need ideas to play with, you can try one or more of the several. So what would I like to see? So I want to see like the best result you can achieve with the lowest dynamic range possible or the highest dynamic range possible. I think the highest dynamic range is the easy one. The lower you can go with the dynamic range, the more skillful you have to be in terms of lighting, exposure, and also composition, because you will have to deal a lot with like clumped values. I want to see the best result with uh, a curve, a tone mapping curve that resembles the least an S curve. This will be a bit tricky because I built the function of the curve to be an S curve, of course, but you can do stuff like, let's say, like you can do like this, for example, and this is not anymore an S curve, for example. It's a bit ugly, but you can play with it and get to nice results. This looks a bit better now. I want to see the best result you can get with fixed lighting, so not accounting for dynamic changes, and maybe you can set it to a specific time of the day or just have a closed environment and artificially lit it. I want to see the best you can do with dynamic lighting, so having a day-night cycle or something else like I don't know, a bunker where you can turn on and off lights, something like that. I want to see the best you can do with the least amount of color possible and the best you can do with the more extreme coloring you can get to. I want to see how close you can go to simulating a target analogic media or also digital, like as I said, like a Polaroid. Like if you want to replicate the feeling of a Polaroid, can you do it? I want you to see to try to replicate one of those incredible color grading that some movies have. I'm thinking about Hair, I'm thinking about Breaking Bad, stuff like that. You get what I mean. I want to see what's the project that has improved the most just thanks to the switch of the tone mapper. So if you have something that you're working on, you try you try my tone mapper on it, and it immediately. I mean, I think you have to give it some tuning, but it gets better. I want to see that what's the difference, what was that you couldn't achieve with the default tone mapper, and most of all, the most important one for me is I challenge you to find a setup that you can make it look nice with a real stone mapper, and you just can't with mine. That will be the most important one, because so that maybe I know on what do I have to work on. There is one caveat on this, and I struggled with it a lot at the beginning. So it's not that, this doesn't look like what Unreal gives me by default, so I guess I'm getting something wrong or it doesn't work properly, because the point is not that my tone mapper has to work like Unreal's one. I hope you see what I mean, because if you're fine with Unreal's tone mapper, like there is no point in trying it out mine. Just use that and you get the result you want. The point is mine is different to handle, is different in the outcome, is different in the behavior. So it will take some time to get used to it, of course. I mean, I needed some time to get into the specifics of my tone mapper, and I was developing it, so I guess it will be a bit harder for you. Uh, the point is you're using a different thing, so embrace it and see where you can go. And something that helps a lot, at least has helped me a lot, is to go back and forth between mine and the reals and try to, okay, push the image further to a better condition, let's say with mine, and then go back to a real and try to obtain the closest possible result you can with that. Maybe you will be able to improve something even more and then go back to mine and try to match it with mine or push it even further. And you can do this back and forth, and it's quite useful sometimes to have a nice, to reach a nice image and get into the logics of the two things. To be honest, while doing this, I also improved a lot in tuning up the Arial Stone Mapper, and I understood a lot of things. Um, so, yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to say. I hope to see many people, not too many, but many people trying it out and hearing your thoughts and receiving feedbacks and ultimately like having fun with all of this stuff. Like the one of the things I always like the most of being a technical artist is you make a tool with an idea in mind, and like you think, okay, this is how it should work and this is what it should do, and then you give it to people and they do like all sorts of crazy shit that you could have never imagined, and that makes sense, and you develop it and you didn't have a clue your tool could do that. That's super nice to have. So let me know, and hopefully I see you either on Discord or on my Patreon. If you don't want to miss updates, subscribe and everything else. Like if you want me to support me on Patreon, please do it. Like I like to not go live under a bridge and earn some money, and if I can keep doing this as a full-time job, everyone will benefit from this, I think, because I hope you like what I'm doing. So that's it from me. That was a long video. Bye.